2,913 since LeBron wasn't in it. We're staring down a chasm, but we need a Miyagi for Chris Paul's hamstring. Let's go around the horn.
Man, he is cursed.
This is terrible. This is just brutal.
It's Around the Horn, the show of competitive banter. Here's Tony Reale.
Celtics with a chance to close out Pats tonight. Rockets 1 away from dethroning the Warriors. We'll get to both games in a second. First, the collective ugh. Chris Paul already ruled out for tomorrow. Brutal on about 10 fronts. First, though, why even announce this right now if you're Houston? Keep the mystery until tip, right? Woody, your thoughts on Chris Paul's hamstring injury?
I feel so badly for him because throughout the playoffs history for him, he always getting hurt. And here he is again when he keeps getting better and better in these playoffs. I mean, think about the last game. 5 out of 6 times in the second half, he had go-ahead field goal attempts, and he converted them, and that's never happened in the last 20 years in a postseason in NBA history. So I think that given that he's outscored Harden 2-1 in second halves of the last 2 victories, I mean, this is a big series changer. It's not a game changer. I think it changes the whole series and the future of the finals.
Israel Gutierrez?
Yeah, it's so unfortunate for Houston because it was the one main factor, the one thing that you can't control. Chris Paul gets hurt at critical times. It just happened again at a time where he'd gotten further into the playoffs than he had ever gotten before. It's Shakespearean in its tragedy level. It really is, especially if he can't come back and the Rockets lose after going up 3-2. But what interests me here is what the view is from the Warriors' perspective, too, if they presumably go on and win because, in part, because Chris Paul wasn't there. Go back to their history of championships. They won a championship one year because it got past the Spurs team with Kawhi Leonard went out in that game 1. The year before that, Mike Conley, Kyrie Irving, if you want to throw Patrick Beverly in there. They're going to be viewed as a team that got lucky despite the fact they are a dynasty in progress. That's pretty odd to think.
I want to address that, whether Israel doth protest too much about that. But first, Frank, I sold on Chris Paul.
Well, it's a devastating blow for the Houston Rockets. You know, Chris Paul did miss 3 games in March with a similar injury. Eric Gordon is going to start, and he's more than capable. He averaged 21 points a game in 30 starts that he made, but they brought Chris Paul in for leadership. And in the second half of that game, yes, he scored 18 points, but it was his grit, his toughness, his leadership, which really carried that team through while James Harden was having an epic collapse, missing, 11 three-pointers, not playing very well. To me, the leadership is really what they're going to miss on the defensive end.
And Clinton Yates.
Yeah, maybe I'm just in, the minority here, but last time I checked, Golden State lost the last 2 games, and they still have James Harden, and they're on the brink of elimination. The Warriors are. As while I see this as personally very problematic for Chris Paul, I certainly don't see this as ending the series on any remote level for the Rockets. Harden is the one guy who can probably blow up and take the place of him from a point standpoint. If you look at who they've been on the floor with him, if you extrapolate to the 100 possessions, they've outscored the Warriors with just Harden on the floor and not Paul. So for me overall, yeah, sure, this is an issue, but I certainly don't believe this affects the Rockets' chances to win the next game. Which
Anyone think Clinton Yates is crazy? Frank?
Well, I think James Harden needs to play better. And come on, you cannot watch that game yesterday and not think it was reminiscent of Game 6 against San Antonio, when in a big moment he wasn't delivering. 0 for 11 on threes. But I will say this. He had the biggest moment of the game when he drove to the basket, kicked it out to Eric Gordon, and Gordon knocked down that 3 to make it 95.
Israel's Clinton crazy for thinking Houston's not done without Chris Paul?
I do think he's a little bit crazy. I do think that 0 for 20 on his last 23s for James Harden is not a good sign. I think as he gets deeper in the series or deeper in the playoffs, he becomes a little bit easier to defend, especially when you throw fatigue in there. However, all of that said, he's right in that it just takes one. It takes the MVP to have one MVP type of game and have a couple other people shooting well, and they can close out the series.
Israel's perception of Golden State, or the perception of Golden State, I think Israel would be more accurate, right? Do you think less of them, Frank, in the road that they got here? This is yet another season they're going up against a team that's not full strength.
Well, hang on a second. They haven't had Andre Iguodala for the last 2 games.
True.
Steph Curry missed the first 6 games of the playoffs. I'm not going down that road. You know what? It should be the survival of the fittest in the playoffs, and they've come out on top. And remember, Draymond Green's suspension was kind of big a few years ago.
Okay. I mean, the truth is, you could not tell me if there were injuries for the opponents of the Celtics in the 60s. I'm not sure if you can tell me if there was for the Bulls in the 90s with Jordan, Clinton Yates. But do you think, well, year after year after year, the Warriors are facing a team that is playing with less than. Does that make them less than?
I think it's a little unfair to them, but in this case, I didn't think they were going to win this series anyway, so I'm not particularly surprised that they're in the position that they're in. I mean, look, you're 0 for 4 against the Rockets without Iguodala. That tells me something as much about their team as it does about the opponents they face.
Okay. I had to laugh at the end of last night's game. Let's look at it right here. This was the timeout and play you wanted from Steve Kerr in Game 4. That's what happened. How Golden State has lost all ability to close games is mystifying. How the Rockets won a game with Harden going 5 of 21 and missing 33-pointers, and, of course, the Paul hamstring mid-play. And Golden State only getting a Quinn Cook 3 attempt out of it. What you saw there, the Cook 3, the Draymond turnover, enough for you to believe the Warriors are not who you thought they were, Frank?
Well, very disappointing at the end of both of those games. And some of that has to fall on Steve Kerr. But come on, guys. Kevin Durant took his final shot with 3:48 to go in the game. He is 1 for 9 in the last 2 fourth quarters. If that's LeBron, if it's Kobe Bryant, Russell Westbrook, we're getting all over him. Kevin Durant has to be better. In that little speech that we saw during the timeout with Steve Kerr, he's telling a campfire story about Michael Jordan. That told me that he wanted to say, he's so fragile that I can't hit him over the head and say, you need to get other guys involved. So he began by telling him a story about Michael Jordan.
Oh, I thought that was an intimate moment. That was like something we've never seen before, but you say it wasn't a good thing, the way Durant was walking away.
I think it tells you that Steve Kerr thinks he's so fragile that he can't just tell him, move the ball. He had to tell him a story about Michael Jordan.
All right. Woody Page, are the Warriors not who you thought they were?
Well, they're not who I thought they were, but they are not who they thought they were. That's more important. They're not doing any of the stuff. I mean, think about these two games. When you have more turnovers than you have assists. This is the best assist team in the National Basketball Association, and yet they're just throwing the ball away. They are not playing as they did. They're not circling. I mean, they look like, in their best form, the Harlem Globetrotters of the day, when they would just circle and then somebody would end up with an easy shot. What they've got now are ISO plays, 18 more per game than they were during the regular season, and they're not having the assist.
Steve Kerr says he feels great about where they are, and that may sound crazy. But that's 2 of the worst possessions you can imagine happening to end games, right, Israel? So is feeling good enough for Kerr? Is he blowing this in some way?
I mean, the feeling good part just has to be the coach saying the right things to keep his team uplifted, because there's not a whole lot to feel good about. Houston, they switch on the pick and rolls 3 times more than Golden State's previous opponents have throughout this season, and it's just really bogging down the offense. And when you have to try to convince Kevin Durant to play a certain way, that's not great. And when you have to just settle for a Kevin Durant mismatch every single time, not every time, but close to every time, that's not great either. They don't look like themselves. They look like a team that's trying to turn it on at the most crucial time, and they can't do it right.
Okay, but I'm going to deduct the point here, Israel. They're not just settling for Kevin Durant. They're settling for Quinn Cook. Quinn Cook's taking the biggest shot in your season there. It was open, but so was Curry. Curry was whipping around at the top of the key. He was open, too. Clinton Yates.
Yeah, I mean, they seemed like a team that was nervous. If you think about what the vocal leader of this squad, Draymond Green, said at the beginning, he seemed like he was doing everything other than addressing the fact that they're probably playing a team that they know can beat them, and they're kidding themselves if they think they're in a good position. You're 1 loss away from your season ending. Get real.
James Harden, 0 for his last 20 from 3. He says, who cares? You say what, Israel?
Huge pressure.
Frank Isola?
Huge pressure, but he had a great assist last night as well.
Clinton Yates?
MVP.
Okay, I mean, that one we already know, but I'm talking about for this series going forward.
That's what he'll show in the next game.
Woody Page.
We care.
That's the answer. It doesn't matter. We'll move on. Cavs Celtics tip off in 3 hours if LeBron ever finishes the water. Expectations for LeBron absurdly high, higher than any other athlete ever, and with good reason. His numbers and closeouts is incomprehensible. What are you expecting from LeBron tonight, Frank?
I'm expecting a big game. I kind of feel like he punted on that last game, figured they didn't have it. He didn't have it. He's rested up for this game, but it's all about the supporting cast. He outscored them in the last game, the rest of the other 4 starters. That's the 5th time that's happened this playoffs. I expect him to have a big game. He needs Kevin Love, J.R. Smith, George Hill, Kyle Korver to do something as well.
Glenn Yates?
I'm expecting a huge game out of him for multiple reasons. Number one, I think he's going to try to heat up from the three-point line in order to open things up and get things moving underneath. But also, I don't think that he wants this to be his last game in a Cavaliers uniform, which is very much an option, but it won't be tonight.
Stay hydrated.
Yeah,
Well,
Woody, go
it's
ahead.
not going to be his last game in a Cavs uniform because they're definitely going to win tonight. They're not going to be shut out at home like this. I think it's, when you talk about big game, huge game, I'll go beyond that. He's going to score 50 points tonight because he knows that the other guys are not still doing enough to help him out. And so he's going to take it upon himself. And, of course, they're going to go back to Boston.
Israel Gutierrez.
Electrolytes, Tony. Electrolytes, like the ones that you're choking on right now. He does definitely need to not cramp up. But honestly, I expect him to really get other guys involved early on because we've seen how obvious it is that when his teammates perform, they win. And so he's going to get other guys involved while still looking for his. I know he doesn't want a repeat of leaving the Cleveland Cavaliers floor in a Game 6 against the Boston Celtics at this level of the playoffs and then leaving. So he's at the very least going to make it to a Game 7.
I'm Googling right now if you can overdose on water. As I do that, Frank, on the Celtics, things you saw in Game 5 maybe that can carry over on the road because that hasn't happened for either team this series. What's the one thing, if they do it, means they win tonight?
Move the ball offensively. 17 points in the first quarter of Game 3, 18 points in the first quarter of Game 4. They didn't give themselves a chance to win on the road in those two games.
Woody Page?
Get Al Horford untracked. He has got to be so important to this team. And if they can get him involved at both ends, they have a chance.
Glenn Yates?
Yeah, if Horford can get involved in the mid-range game and not only have shots from inside the painted area, I think they'll do well offensively.
Israel Gutierrez.
Got to hit threes on the road. Really, you're just hoping that they can win this game because they've shown no evidence that they can. The easiest way to do that, hit a bunch of threes.
You brought it up, Clinton. I'm going to go there now because why not? I mean, by the time we come back on Monday, the series is going to be over for whoever. If the Cavs lose tonight or if they win but lose Sunday, what happens with LeBron, does LeBron leave Cleveland, is going to be deafening. Do you think anything that happens this weekend affects his decision, Frank, in 3 words or fewer, if you can?
Winning helps. Losing hurts.
Israel?
Man, Cleveland's in trouble.
If he loses, okay. Woody Page?
We care.
And Clinton Yates?
Either way, he gone.
Wow, either way. Either way? Either way?
Definitely
Sure
if
about
they
that?
lose.
Taking a break right here, buy or sell on the other side. And you can overdose from water, so
Oh, no.
who's
Thanks
on the
for
on-deck
showing us
circle
your
here?
Scotch glass.
Go to the bathroom. Preview to the preview of the Stanley Cup Final. Vegas minus 155 over Washington. Buy or sell Golden Knights is the favorite, Clinton Yates.
I'm buying it simply because I know that not everybody loves this, but home ice matters for one team in the NHL more than the others, and it is the Vegas Golden Knights. And plus, Nick Backstrom's hand looks ridiculously swollen, and that's concerning me a lot as a fan.
Woody Page?
Well, when you really want an answer, Tony, go to the source. So I reached out to 2 of my guys in Vegas, and I said, really? And they said, where are they playing more games? So Clinton's right. And they said, Fleury. So that's the reason for the favorite, even though the other team's coming out of a
You
stronger
needed to
conference.
call the guys in Vegas to find out they had home ice advantage and Fleury as their goalie. I understand. Gutierrez, how about you?
I think it makes sense to side with Fleury when you consider some of the numbers. At even strength, his save percentage will be better than any goalie in the postseason over the last 20 years. So that's obviously a good guy to ride going into the final here. But more than anything, picking the Capitals to get someplace they've never been before, at least with Ovechkin there, that's probably something that you still can't shake.
Okay, but people are picking Vegas who've never been there before either. Is something you can't shake. I saw that. How about you?
You know, Vegas has been a dominant team. They've only played 15 of a possible 21 games in the first 3 rounds. Here's the thing about Marc-Andre Fleury and Alex Ovechkin. Ovechkin has scored 21 career goals against him. That's the most against any player that Fleury has given up. So that's a key stat this series.
Frankie Ice bringing stats on a Friday. That usually doesn't
Hockey
happen.
stats.
All right, interesting. We'll move on. Buy or sell 2. The Red Sox dumping Hanley Ramirez to make room for Dustin Pedroia. In the last month, Ramirez has gone from .330 to .254. He's 0 for his last 21, splitting time between first base and DH. Woody, buy or sell?
I'm selling it. I know it's a money deal here. That's all it's about. Is they don't want to end up having to pay him $22 million next year, although they owe him $15 million if he goes. They're hoping somebody nibbles and will make a trade for him. But I think the guy had a great April, and he could have a great June if you kept him around.
Israel?
Yeah, but this May has been pretty bad. 163, a 200 on-base percentage, a 300 slugging percentage. I get that it's not for the future, but right now, at that type of production from first base and designated hitter, you can't afford that.
Frank Isola?
Yeah, this is all about next season, not getting the $22 million. By the way, the Yankees are happy. This year in 6 games, 3 home runs, 9 RBIs. That's Hanley Ramirez against their #1 rival. The Yankees are happy.
Frankie, better get stats on a Friday. How about this? Clinton Yates.
Yeah, exactly. Every time I look up, all Hanley is doing is mashing against somebody who matters, either in the postseason or otherwise. I'm selling this completely on a baseball level as well as on a fan level. I mean, just look around. It was shocking. People were stunned to hear this. I don't like it at all.
Yeah. That's what he did against the Yankees this year, what he did against the Astros last year in the AL. Yes. Blake Swihart, though, is who the Red Sox like. So we'll move on. Buy or sell 3. LSU, South Carolina, SEC tournament elimination game. That's LSU pitcher Todd Peterson batting in the 12th. And he delivered the would-be winning runs. And here's how this moment came about.
I went up to him and I said, hey, did you hit in high school? And he looked at me and he says, Coach, I hit nukes in high school.
Todd, when's the last time you've had an at-bat in a competitive baseball game?
Coach, I'll be honest, I didn't hit in high school. My coach didn't let me. You know, I beat Pete a couple times. You know, I did hit nukes, I'll tell you that. But yeah.
You didn't even hit in the games in high school?
No.
Incredible moment there. Israel, buy or sell lying to your manager that you hit in the past to hit in the moment and then get the hit like that?
I am buying it. That is the type of confidence I want in my athletes, to be able to massage the truth a little bit and go up there and take your hacks. No batting gloves, nothing. Just go up there blindly and do it and hit that double. Man, that takes guts.
Yeah, he looked like a young Ben McDonald who once upon a time played for LSU. I love the fact he wanted that moment. And as Izzy said, not a lot of guys go up there, Vlad Guerrero style. No batting gloves.
Glenn Yates?
#1 pick overall, Ben McDonald was. But what he said at the end was the best, where he asked him why he lied to him. He said, Coach, I wanted to swing. That's the kind of baseball attitude I need, kids. When you get in the box, swing the bat. That's what you're there for. I love it.
Woody Page.
I'm buying that baseball's not that tough or difficult to hit. We had 2 days ago, a guy got off his sofa in Florida and doubled in his first at bat. Now we got a kid who hasn't hit probably since he was 8 years old. They come up with a big hit in a game. How tough is that game?
Woody Page. Didn't lose any points, didn't get any points. He got enough to advance. Clinton Yates, Israel Gutierrez took their swings today. Fellas, great on the points per game average today. I think you're going to love this weekend you got coming up. Page and Isola, 39 points in showdown next.
Wow.
Woody Page, Frank Isola, good luck in showdown. Tampa Bay back in on relievers starting. This weekend will be Sergio Romo, Ryan Stanek, and Sergio Romo again versus the O's. Woody, are you okay with the double down on this reliever starting?
Absolutely. This reminds me of something Tony La Russa did years and years ago. You give up more runs, baseball, historically, in the first inning. So why not bring in your closer right away and get your game off to a great rhythm? I think it makes sense.
Haven't the Baltimore Orioles been doing this all year long with their starters just going 1 inning? Here's the thing. It's still a gimmick. And if I'm on Tampa Bay, I'm thinking as a starter, my bonus is tied into how many games I start. I want to be out there starting.
Of course you'd be thinking that, Frank.
Of course. Selfish.
Yeah. All about yourself.
We'll give Woody the point. Showdown 2, speaking of Rays, Bernard Span over the wall twice last night. Once into a fan, the other in front of Raymond. 0 for 2. Still worth the effort, Frank?
You know what? What is the mascot doing there? Yes, it's worth the effort from this standpoint. The fans like it. His teammates must be killing him in the clubhouse for those 2 efforts. It's not Jetarian, because we know, Tony, Derek Jeter makes that play.
Frank,
especially
it was not worth the effort. Did you see the first one? There was somebody in the way. The second one, he's going to land on concrete. Really? You were missing those balls, and it's a possibility you could be out 6 weeks on the disabled list?
It's called trying.
I give Bernard Span a standing ovation for the effort.
Thank you.
Give Frank the point, although he lost the points for Jetarian. We'll move on. Thomas Peters, impressed with his strength here, or underimpressed with the strength of his club, Woody Page?
It doesn't do much for me. I mean, I've done that twice in my life, and you really regret it the next day because you got to go buy another club. So it didn't make any sense. It didn't impress me. Anybody can do that, especially with steel clubs.
Come on now. Bo Jackson has broken a bat over his leg. To break a club on your neck and you can't use it, not impressive at all. I heard Tony once did that. His hamstring. Snapped his hamstring once on a golf course. Come on, Tony. You got to do that.
Hamstring.
But I'm getting a cheetah hamstring replacement. So there we go. Woody Page getting the FaceTime.
Oh, yeah. And guess what's back? Ooh. Tips for Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, yeah.
So get your crayons out. Number one, get an old crank ice cream machine and turn that handle about 100 times. Ice cream never tastes better. Invite everybody in your neighborhood over for a pool party, and then when they get there, go, surprise, we're shooting pool. And everybody will be in their swimsuits, and you'll be playing billiards.
Oh, my God.
The third thing is try a Southern Slaw Dog. Put coleslaw on your hot dog. Number 4, watch us on Monday. We'll be here around the horn. First time, Memorial Day.
That's 4. A great tip. We are working on Memorial Day. We'll be here with all the action from the NBA games and more. 7 1/2 hour break for us. See you Monday.